Pleasure. If you have done something meritorious, you experience pleasure and happiness. If wrong things, suffering. A happy or unhappy life is your own creation. Nobody else is responsible. If you remember this, you won't find fault with anybody. You are your own best friend as well as your worst enemy. Swami Satchidananda. Freud opined that the pleasure principle was the instinctive driving force of life itself, alone or as the counterpart to avoiding pain. It has been argued long and wide that Freud referred to sex when he spoke of pleasure, but most philosophers seem to agree that as a life-driving force, pleasure is much deeper than hedonism. Indeed, there is infinite pleasure that can be derived from such mundane activities as a hot bath, a cup of fragrant tea, or an engrossing book. It is healthy and desirable to seek to live one's life as pleasurably as possible, provided it is done with a conscience, with consideration for one's fellow man, with forethought and tact and mindfulness of the sensibilities of others. To plod ahead without regard for others would be unconscionable, because it would make one's own pleasure above another's, and would create a rift in the social fabric. Pleasure, like food, should be shared. Politeness. Politeness is the art of choosing among your thoughts. Anne Louise Germain de Staël. Courtesy, respect, good judgment, diplomacy, and consideration. These are all aspects of social grease designed to encourage harmony among people. Politeness is an act of empathy, trying to put oneself in someone else's skin and imagining how that person might respond to certain acts. Failing to hold the door for the next person in line is but a small act, but such repeated small acts serve to erode the smooth machinery of peacefulness and harmony. Politeness and respect involve the feeling of others. Checking one's speech in public is a sign of courtesy. Not interrupting someone else is respectful. Avoiding insults or querulous behavior should be badges of honor and pride. Politeness is always appropriate. Pride. I do not care so much what I am to others as I care what I am to myself. Michel de Montaigne. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins when considered within the tapestry of the Bible, but the pride spoken of in that context implies arrogance. Pride can also mean self-esteem, a feeling of accomplishment of a worthy goal. For example, completing one's dissertation in a timely manner, losing the stubborn last 10 pounds, climbing Mount Everest, or finally getting in front of an audience and giving a speech, however short and disconnected. All are sources that engender self-respect. The feeling of pride is monumental at those times, lifting the spirit, lifting one's confidence. This is especially true if the task was hard won. Prudence. Look and see which way the wind blows before you commit yourself. Aesop. Prudence refers to caution, care, and attention. It is the judicious use of what one has at one's disposal. Discretion distinguishes the good sense espoused by the careful person. It involves foresight, sagacity, seeing potential consequences to one's actions or inactions. Prudence is considered the mother of all virtues, perhaps because virtue itself is the perfected ability of man and woman to become spiritual, and such ability rests upon prudence as the foundation of one's capacity to make the right decisions for living. It is prudence that tempers one's instinctual urges. Punctuality. If I have made an appointment with you, I owe you punctuality. I have no right to throw away your time if I do my own. Richard Cecil. Other relating homilies attest to punctuality being the cornerstone of business. Indeed, in business as in our social lives, we are routinely subject to schedules of all sorts. We make appointments. Our children have to be shuttled to extracurricular activities or picked up from school. We must catch the bus to get to work on time, comply with a schedule of medications, or perform various chores that would create a life of chaos if left undone. This is where punctuality is essential, not only to provide a certain structure to our own lives, but also as a sign of respect for others' plans, a sign of courtesy, and a willingness to observe our co-human's life order, or not. If we do not wish to be restricted by the rigors of punctuality, we may simply refuse an engagement or decline a commitment. However, if we accept a dinner invitation, for example, arriving late is downright rude and an affront to the host. In other words, punctuality subsumes others in the equation. It is not only one's own timing or schedule to be considered, but others as well. Punctuality is a sign of respect. It is polite, it is courteous, and does not require a great deal of effort to practice. Start on time, end on time, and arrive when you are expected. Lack of punctuality has destroyed friendships, compromised legal affairs, and even put countries in grave danger when parties neglected to abide by the exigencies of timeliness in transmitting orders. Purity. Always aim at complete harmony of thought and word and deed. Always aim at purifying your thoughts and everything will be well. Mahatma Gandhi. Purity implies cleanliness. It suggests cleanliness of the soul, of interaction between beings. Cleanliness in interactions involves truth and openness, straightforwardness and willingness, candor and compassion, kindness of words, civility in interpersonal dealings. If your thoughts and motives are pure, your actions, too, will be clear and free of ulterior motives. Aim to serve, aim to help your fellow man without regard to your own self-interests. Purposefulness. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy, and daring those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Robert F. Kennedy. Everyone wants his or her life to have meaning, to be significant in some way. Purposefulness defines life's significance, living as if one matters, as if one's existence is relevant, implies standing up for what one believes, having convictions and living by them. As Robert Kennedy said, it is the collection of innumerable small acts of courage that define how one improves the lives of others. Energy, determination, resolve to the higher good are all acts of purposefulness. Examine your life and decide what is your purpose, and you will find your meaning. Reliability. When friendships are real, they are not glass threads or frostwork, but the solidest things we can know. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Like courtesy and punctuality, reliability is the cloak that defines trust. It is at the core of dependability, reliance, and conviction. It is a gift one offers to others. This gift says, you can count on me to tell you the truth, to be candid and open, vulnerable and loyal. There are some immutable forces that one can rely on, that one can trust and lean on securely: your faith, your assets, and especially your word. Remorse. And no, it wasn't shame I now felt, or guilt, but something rarer in my life and stronger than both. Remorse, a feeling which is more complicated, curdled, and primeval, whose chief characteristic is that nothing can be done about it. Too much time has passed, too much damage has been done for amends to be made. Julian Barnes. The book, The Sunflower by Simon Wiesenthal, recounts his experiences in the concentration camps, specifically his experience of being forced to listen to a dying SS officer begging for forgiveness from a Jew, ostensibly as a representative of the race. The book is an account told in the first person of Mr. Weisenthal's reluctance to grant the dying SS man forgiveness, which decision haunts him in later years. The book also offers the opinions of some prominent philosophers and psychologists about the rightness or wrongness of his withholding forgiveness. The book has generated some intriguing ideas in my mind. While the Holocaust is commonly associated with the systematic extermination of a whole race of people, namely 6 million Jews, it was, in fact, far more virulent. It was actually a plan, which was almost successful, to create a perfect race. To that end, some 12 million men, women, and children, Jews and Catholics, Gypsies, Poles, Russians, and every other non-Aryans were systematically decimated. How did that happen? How could a civilized nation, a people, an entire populace be induced to such a deep hatred for anyone other than their own, a loathing of such depth as to consider them subhuman, vermin, and in need of eradication? The answer, albeit a very simplistic one, lies in the psychology of groups. There is something else to consider here of paramount importance. The Holocaust did not happen overnight. The Holocaust was the culmination of 25 years of foment, discontent, political and economic upheaval that catapulted Hitler to power and thus permitted the atrocities that ensued to take place. In many respects, Hitler assumed a position of power illegitimately, but he did rise to power through eloquent, galvanizing speeches that spoke directly to the fears and frustrations of the people at the time, along with some downright larcenous machinations that secured for him the top seat at the table. Hitler began his propaganda of hate by associating the Jews with the Bolsheviks, and in his twisted thinking, holding them responsible for the deep shame of Germany's loss of the war in 1919. Germany was now obligated to pay huge reparations. At the time, many German banks were owned by Jews. 80% of shops were Jewish-run, and most stockbrokers were Jewish. It therefore became expedient to impugn Germany's economic malaise on the Jews. Hitler blamed the Jews for the Russian Revolution, citing Leon Trotsky's and Karl Marx's faith, as well as the fact that Lenin was one-quarter Jewish. With an economy on the brink, the loss of an important war, and the fanaticism of a man, it is perhaps easier to understand how certain facts became distorted, eventually morphing from dislike to blame to murderous hatred, and in time to the final solution. The final solution took many years to become a reality. What does this have to do with remorse? True, many Germans, Christians and Jews alike, felt the pinch of a bad economy, and many young Germans became caught up in the movement before that movement became virulent. Sadly, with sufficient momentum, groupthink took over, and the same young people who joined a worthy cause now found themselves practicing acts which violated their own principles. The problem with groups is that it is not all that easy to extricate oneself and declare that one will no longer participate. Once entrenched in a group, one tends to obliterate one's own personality in favor of the group's. And so it was that many Nazis committed acts of cruelty in the name of the group they belonged to, even though they, themselves, may not have wished to do so. History is full of such stories, the regret of murderers who can only gain perspective from afar. The Sunflower recounts of one such SS officer who had a chance to contemplate his acts, and on his deathbed asks a Jew for forgiveness. The central issue is not whether the author, Simon Wiesenthal, was able or even willing to forgive, but that the SS officer asked for forgiveness. It was his remorse that is crucial here. It is hard to believe that on his deathbed he had any kind of hidden agenda to manipulate a Jew. Reputation. The way to gain a good reputation is to endeavor to be what you desire to appear. Socrates. It takes many good deeds to earn a reputation, and only one bad one to lose it. Benjamin Franklin. Socrates likened reputation as the quality that matched one's outward behavior. Do not attempt to appear as you are not. If you want to be taken seriously, behave seriously, with integrity. If you want to be trusted, be trustworthy. Keep your word, and keep your commitments. Benjamin Franklin advanced the concept by describing how easy it is to lose one's good name with a single act that does not reflect the truth or integrity of the person involved. Your reputation is your name. It exists in spite of you. It follows your demise and can be a relentless foe or loyal friend. Nurture it.